sample of what here's a sample of what the options API looks like, and you find that you get to use modules like data, React, view, lifecycle hooks like created, methods, computed, each of them, carrying out one function with the other or holding a data or variable. But for the composition API on the right, what you need to work with is a setup and then a return object as well. So we'll go into more details on this when we start working on our project. So yeah, our project is done is done running. So we'll visit that soon. So now, what are the problems that the Vue composition API aims to solve? One of it is the separation of code with similar logic. So now I'm going to share something from the I'm going to share something from the Vue documentation explaining how this works. Now, like I have shown you for the composition API, or pardon me, options API, there are times when you have, you're fetching data, say from an endpoint, and you need to filter the data, say from a list of users, fetch only the active users, and then display to the DOM. If that component is heavily dependent on functions and variables, you'll find that you have something like this, So Vue was explaining, or here it was explaining, the color codes here explain that, or are explaining the similar activities going on, or how each function is related to the other. So everything on the same color code is related, and then on different color codes, it's a lot different from what's going on. So for example, we have green here, we have green here, we also have green here. So if you have so much data going on your component, or you have so much methods listed, the logic for computing a particular data set would be scattered all over the application, all over the component. So you're not able to find each logic or group them easily. But with the Vue composition API, you're able to use setup to group variables and functions and computed properties that have a similar logic. So essentially, everything is in one space. So you're not going about or scrolling through a large chunk of methods. Also, you draw back using duplicated logic across functions. So if you have like a function that you need to use in multiple components, having to sometimes, especially if you're using Vuex, you need to import them and then pass them or fetch, access them through maybe stored or dispatch and all of that. But with Vue composition API, you can just reference directly. You don't need to save the function anywhere. All you need to do is just access the store and you're good to go. So now that our project is done setting up, I'll go ahead to create the project, and then we'll continue working with that. So I want to open this on Visual Studio Code, and then I'll share that with you as well. And run npm run serve to get the project started. So yeah, I'll share my my screen with you now. I mean the Visual Studio Code. Just a second, please. Right. Okay. So here is the okay. So here is the project running on localhost 8083. So yeah, this is basically what you see when you run a VueJS application, a VueJS project for the first time. So we're going to clear off all of the things that we do not need at this time. So I don't need the logo, so I'm going to be deleting this. But I want to create a style file where I can post or paste some of the CSS codes that I've already worked on. So for Hello World, I'm going to rename this to a component called form because I need to work with a form. And I'm also going to create another file, another component called all pleasures. We're going to be using this much later in the course of the this demo. So I'm clearing everything here. I'm changing this to form. I don't need these props. I also want to get rid of the template. So I already have some codes written out. It's essentially just a form. We'll go through the form together so nobody is lost. So I'll go ahead to paste that here and then I'll save it. Then I'm moving over to sorry, one moment, please. I need to recreate, I need to recreate this. Yeah, I was supposed to create a Vue 3. A Vue 3 project, please. So I'll just call this one, please. I mean, I had this working before now, so what's going on? Please just give me a couple of minutes to get this sorted. Okay, so I'm going to create the app again. And I'll just call this Pleasure City. One moment, please. So I want to create a Vue 3 project. I'm trying to recreate the project. But hey, it's taking longer than it should. Okay, we're almost ready. We're almost ready. I promise you, this wasn't happening before now. This wasn't happening before now. Uh, okay. What I'll just go ahead to do is show you, and I'll just go ahead to do like an explanation from a previous project, because right now I'm having a bit of a challenge launching um a bit of a challenge launching a Vue 3 application. Yeah, does that work, please? So I'll try as much
Um,
to.
Chinyere, yeah, well done, Chinyere.
Pardon?
So well done.
Thank
Uh,
you.
what's the challenge? What's the challenge?
I'm supposed to launch. I'm trying to open up a Vue 3 project, but it keeps giving me Vue 2. But that's actually fine. I'll just go ahead to work with something I had worked on before, and follow. And then of course, we can just follow through with that. Yeah. So I'll go ahead to
Okay,
explain. Yes, I'll go ahead to explain using this project. I'll go ahead to explain using this project. So yeah, let me just get it running, and then we can continue. So I don't waste so much time trying to figure out what's going on. All right. Okay. So I have something running now. I have something running now. I'm so sorry about the breaking transmission. Yeah. So awesome. I'll share my screen right away. I will be sharing my Visual Studio Code and the application. So yeah, I already had this pre-designed. This is supposed to allow us test Vue 3. I've already had this written, so I'll just like go ahead to rewrite the code so that we can all follow through. Or better still, just delete them and then we will rerun this again. So yeah, I previously mentioned that I will be focusing on 3 things today. Please confirm that you can see my screen and that you can see what I'm working on at the moment. Anyone?
Yes, I
Okay.
can see your screen.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So yeah, I'll go ahead to explain what's going on. I'll take off all of this and then explain what's happening. So I had said that we were going to work on 3 different aspects of the composition API. And the first one is what we are going to be. The first we'll be working on is using refs. So what ref does is it allows you to save variables into the Vue model to do like a two-way binding. Then you can also run your functions all in the same setup without having to distribute them into data, methods, and the likes. So now I'm going to begin by, I'm already importing ref. So usually you're supposed to import ref from Vue, excuse me. So I'm going to start working with ref right away. So for setup, you must return an object. So whatever you have inside the setup must be returned. So for example, if you, it's the same way it works when you're using data and then you're returning you're using data and returning in the options API. So you need to return whatever variable you have declared here or function so that you can access it in the DOM. Yeah. So now the first thing I'm going to be, okay, let me first explain this form. So yeah, it's just a simple form and then with another page, which is it's called my pleasures. We are supposed to be able to fetch all of the inputs on from the form here in the my pleasure app, my pleasures page. So now there are 2 inputs: the activity that you want to carry out and then the time frame you want to carry it out for. And then you can go ahead to add an activity. I'm already displaying no your new activity comes here, but I'll also get to why I am displaying that at the moment. All right. So yeah. So I'll go ahead to I'll go ahead to declare an activity. So, or declare the variable activity, and we'll say activity is equal to, or well, we're using a ref, and then we're creating an empty string. And then I'm also going to create the time variable, and it would also be an empty string. So I can go ahead to do a two-way binding. So this would be activity, and this would be time. So now I need to ensure that my button is working. Well, not just the button, actually. Submitting the button works using the form tag and not just the button. So first, I think I'll just comment this out because right now we don't need this. We don't need this. Oops, don't do that. Okay. Okay, yeah. So it Vue is shouting because I have I have some variables that I'm using that I haven't declared before now. Also, this should have it should have a function actually coming because I am not returning activity here inside the object return. So if you don't do that, it will throw an error and you'll not be able to access the application. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead to delete all of these that are also making Vue shout at me. So I'll take all of these out so we're not having any errors. And there's one more, the function. So I'll call this function add activity. Please let me know if you don't understand what I'm doing so that I can, like go over it again. So I'll create a function called add activity, and I would return it here and also create the proper function here as well. So I can just use the regular function declaration. And so everything that concerns adding an activity will be done inside of this setup. So I can create, say, let's new activity or let's payload, but I'll just call it new activity. Let the new activity be equal to, so I would like to pass an activity to, I would like to pass an activity to a list of activities. Yeah, and so that list of activities, I also need to declare it. So let's just call it a constant, all pleasures. And then we'll also like pass it to the ref as an empty array. So what this function will do is to receive our input and then send it to the pleasures array here. So now what I'll be passing is a new activity and I'll be tying it to activity. Typically using options API, what you do is to reference it is to do a this dot activity. But here in the setup, you don't use this at all. So just go ahead to do activity, and time would also be equal to activity. Pardon me, time will be equal to time. It will be equal to time. But with Vue setup, for you to be able to even access, the content of this activity variable, you need to pass a value to it. So it will be activity.value. So you can't just access the value in activity by just calling activity. You need to access it using activity.value. Yeah. So I'm getting another error. These things happen. Let me see why. I have my button, I have my div here. Okay. Anyways, I'll return I'm sure I'll figure it. I'm sure I'll figure what's going on. Yeah. So from the error here, we're expecting a closing tag in the form, which has already been closed by the activity was assigned whenever used. I need this error to go away. Oh yeah, figured it. So now I'm not closing my form tag. I commented it out as well, and I shouldn't have done that. So yeah, let me cut this. Let me put this here. Okay, so we're back on track. Awesome. So I feel like I missed out something. I feel like I should have run through my code folder structure before I'm going into the codes that I have here. So I'll quickly do that. In my assets, I have images that I've already saved, and that's the image that you can see here. That's the image that you can see here. I also have two components, the all pleasures component, and I have a form component. This hello world is actually not being used, so we can just ignore it. Now I've created in my index folder, I've created two pages to be navigated to. One is the home page, and then the other is the my pleasures page, which is what you can see here. And I also have my store running because I had selected use store when I was creating this project. Now for view and for my views, I have the home folder, the home file, which is what we are currently working on, and I'm passing the form here, and that's the form that you can see here. So yeah, it's in this form. It's this form component that I'm actually rendering here, and then under my pleasures, I'm supposed to be rendering something else, but I'm not doing that yet. But we'll get to that shortly. So I think that covers it. And then for my app, the view, I have my links to my pages. Then I also have the image in the app.view because it's not changing. So there's no point putting it anywhere else but the app.view. So it's a constant that is not changing at all. Then in my main .js, I'm importing my style, style CSS, and ensuring that I'm using it as well. If you can see view use, that's ensuring that the application is pointing to my style. So yeah, I'll go ahead to continue with the rest of the development. So now I have all pleasures. I'm supposed to, of course, return this. And for the function to run properly, I could, for my add activity function to run, what I need to do is to ensure that I am passing value into the all pleasures array. And to do that, I will call all pleasures dot push. So you push new activity. So like I have said, this wouldn't work. This wouldn't work because when you're using refs, if I save this, it will definitely throw an error. So when using refs, or rather, if we add any data into all pleasures, you won't even see anything displayed in the DOM because we need to specify dot value. Yeah. So let's just let's test it out. So we're already binding activity and time, and then we have our function add activity working here. And that is also being run inside of the setup. So let's see what happens. So for someone like me, one of my favorite activities is sleeping, and I definitely want to sleep for at least 6 hours a day. So yeah, when I add activity now, it's not displaying because I'm not displaying it yet. So I'm going to go ahead to display that. I would create a div called create a div called pleasure list. Yep. And then I'll go ahead to, I think I already have this styling here. So yeah, I'll go ahead to fetch my classes. So I want to display the all pleasure list, but I want to also I want to specifically display the activity and the time, and then maybe a delete button to remove pleasure. So yeah, if I go ahead to save this now, I'll take up the index and I'll put it back later. we'll be able to see all of our pleasures listed in the DOM. So I'll save this now. And then when I add a new pleasure, I need to refresh this, or rather reload it. Oh yeah, so I'm rendering the wrong thing. I'm rendering the wrong thing. So that's why that didn't work. Okay, yeah. So I'll go ahead to, of course, impute sleep again, and I want to sleep for 6 hours. Once I add an activity, you can see sleeping 6 hours listed here. So say I want to do something else like hiking. If I'm going to hike, I want to do that for 30 minutes. And then the moment I click on add activity, you can see hiking listed here as well. So that's how you would work with refs. That's how you work with refs in VueJS composition API. Now, say I want to display a count. So that's, I want to display, essentially I want to display the number of activities. So I'll just grab this from here and just call it activity count. And I would also have it listed here. Now, for me to be able to get that value, I need to compute it. So it's going to be a computed property. So this will be constant activity count is equal to computed, and then I would run the function for computed properties. So that would look something like this. So computed would take a function. Well, you can also use like the arrow function as well, but I'm just going to use this for the sake of people who are probably viewing this and are not, they are at the beginner's level. So now for activity count, I want to return all pleasures dot length. But like I said, this would be wrong. So I'm re-emphasizing the need to always add value so that you can, you can access the values in an object or in an array or in a variable. That's the only way it would work with using ref. So yeah, something is screaming at me. So it's telling me that I declared activity count and I never used it. So guys, like I said, you always have to return it. So here I'm returning it now. I can go ahead to like comment all of this out and explain each one of them to you. So I'm not going to be using this one at the moment. So we have our activity count here. Now what I've done is I've just created view ifs, if statement to display the different activity counts that or the different values that we can get from an activity count. So for example, if the activity count is, yeah, let me just really reduce this. And increase this. All right. So if the activity count is 0, what you should see is your activity comes here. Then I have another paragraph tag that will tell you if your activity count is 1, it will show you you have 1 activity listed. If it is greater than 1, you have the number of activities listed. So let's test this out. So I'll go ahead to add sleeping again. This time around 3 hours. So now it shows you have 1 activity listed, right? So if I add something else, say eating for 10 minutes because, hey, it's just food, you have 2 activities listed. So if I keep adding to the list, so say flying, you have 3 activities listed. All right, do we see how this works? I'd like to get feedback at this time Do we understand how this works? You can unmute your mic to speak really. Nobody. Ha. Have I been speaking to myself? Okay. Even Omar and Linda, are you guys there? So I need some feedback before I continue. I need to be sure that I haven't been speaking. Okay, yeah. Pelumi understands. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much, Pelumi, for saving us at this time. So yeah, and that's exactly how ref works. So as you can see, you can definitely use computed properties. Um, you can also use a watcher. Now I can decide to watch and do something when an activity is logged in. So for example, I want to display, say, a success message. I want to display a success message. So using the watcher, I mean, that's not going to behave as I want it to, but I'll just go ahead to display it at this time. So say I want to watch, and then the watch would take, you know what, let's come back to watching. I'd like us to like quickly, move on to something else, but I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. What have I done again? Oh God. Let me undo. Okay, yeah. It's showing an error because I declared watcher and I didn't use it. This is really loud. I don't like this at all. So, but yeah, it helps you avoid using variables that essentially avoid declaring variables that you don't use and even like redundant data in your application. So it's also a good thing. Now I'd like to move to reactive. So we have worked with refs. Now we can work with reactive. So to use reactive, what you need to do is to first and foremost import it from Vue, and then of course it's making noise now because I haven't started using it, and then go ahead to use it. So now to use reactive in Vue composition API, you'd need to, like I said, import reactive from Vue. Then you create you create an object for yourself. You can call the object you can call it data. So we'll just call it data for the purpose of this session. We'll call it data, and then we'll pass value to a reactive object. So let's go ahead to do that. So I'll show you how this works if you choose not to use ref. So for example, let data be equal to reactive, and then we can declare so all of this is for refs. I hope we're following. So this is for reactive now. We can declare data. Say we declare activity, and then we can call it, let's call this activity hiking, and then we declare a time. We call this time 2 minutes. So yeah, you also need to return data like we have been returning other variables here. So now to use this data, um, doing instead of accessing dot value, what we would be accessing will now be data dot activity. Let's give it a test. So say I want to display this activity now, I could just come here where I have my activity listed or binded to the input field, and then I'll just call this data dot activity. So when I refresh, you can find hiking here listed. So now say I want to also do the same for time. I'll just run data.time and then I save it. So you can find the same thing here. So it means that it works. So that's what happens with data.activity. So if we're going to be creating, say, a function, let me call this function. Let me just copy this one and then I'll edit it. So if I'm going to be creating this function, what I would be passing differently here is what I'll be passing differently here will be this activity will no longer take activity dot value. Yeah, it will now be data dot activity, and then the time will now also be data dot activity and data dot time. Data dot time. Oh. So and then this value would also run as this all pleasure will also run as data dot all pleasure. Say I declare it as well here. Not all of you. Okay. So I want to copy this, and if you want to make reference to it, so this will be you know what, let me just create like a dummy data. So I'll just pass activity. In fact, I'll just pass what I currently have here. I'll pass what I currently have here. I'll delete this, clear it. I'll change this to running so that we can see the difference. And then once I save this, now, let's reference all pleasures. I'm getting an error. Okay, noted. So once I pass data.pleasures here, error will not ruin the library developer. So yeah, sorry, one moment. What's going on? Okay, yeah, this is the reason. So now if I pass these all pleasures here to our pleasure list, so we'll now have activity in data.pleasure. So you can see that you already have data of pleasure. You already have your activity listed here, which is running and then 2 minutes. All right. So that's how it works if you're using data, or pardon me, if you're using reactive. Now, another thing I would like to quickly demonstrate also is, so let me just return this to what it was, is working with the store. So same thing you do with like Vuex. I want us to quickly demonstrate that with VueJS here. So I already have my store, and I kind of already have data in here, but I would go ahead to, okay, let me just comment this out, but then we'll rewrite the code again. So typically if you're moment. If you come to the Vuex store that is predefined when you're trying to build this project, I wanted to demonstrate that as well, but I don't know why that wasn't working, but hey, another time, I guess. So yeah, this is the first thing you see: import create stuff from Vuex, and then I'm sure this is very familiar to a lot of us who actually use Vuex. So state, mutations, actions. You can also add getters. But I'm not going to be using Vuex. I want to use Vue Composition API for this demonstration here. So I'll just comment this out. I could just delete it. but I'll comment it out instead. And so what I will be using instead here would be reactive. Same way I was using reactive at the component level within the form. So I'll create my state like I had done before, import reactive from Vue, then constant my state is equal to reactive. I have my state is equal to reactive within the objects or pleasures, which is an empty array, activities, which is an empty string, and then time is also an empty string. So I'll go ahead to save this. All right. And I also need to export it because I'm not exporting it right now. Comment this methods out so it doesn't throw an error. Now, for us to be able to use the data, or for us to be able to use state from our store anywhere in the application, we need to configure the store here in our app.vue. Now, what you need to do is import store from @store, which is shortcut for src -src. So once this is imported here, you also need to import provide from Vue. Now with Vue 3, the store is already imported in the main.js file, so you don't even need to do that anymore. But in the app.vue, you need to reference it here. Then import provide. Provide is a method that's been created by Vue 3 that allows you to access the store. So of course, we are going to set up like we had done in the form. So set up, provide, store. Of course, we're referencing store here. So we'll call it store because we'll use it. We'll use in the components, we'll be using the name store. And of course, you need to return anything that you put in the setup folder, in the setup object. So we're going to be, or setup function, we're going to be returning store. So I save this and I come back to my form and I want to access the data that I have. I'm going to close this up. I don't need this. I want to access the data that I have here. So I will call this, let's pass a value here. Let's pass activity. Let me call this dancing. And I want to dance for 2 days. Yeah. And I save this. So that way we can demonstrate when the value has actually changed or if we're actually using it. So if you come to form now you remember that with the two-way binding here, you need to declare and then pass it. But with the store, if you're using Vuex, you need to like maybe pass your data to the getters, then come to your computer property to fetch the data or return the data before you can use it in a component. But with Vue Composition API, you can reference it directly. So here I already have, oh no, I don't have it yet. So I need to import, inject, which is also a method that allows us to access application in the store. I saved that, so that's why we're getting an error now. So I would go ahead to, I'll go ahead to set up my store, which will be constant. The store is equal to inject. And we're trying to inject the store. Yeah. So once I save this, the error is gone. Not yet. Let me refresh this. Okay. Why is it happening? Yeah, so I like that these errors are coming up. At least you can follow through or when you're getting errors like this of your own. So I'm trying to figure out where this is coming from now. If you know, tell us so. So yeah. Oh my God, I'm so tired of this happening. Yeah, so this error is coming because we declared store and we didn't pass it. So you see, this is the kind of thing that can frustrate you. So yeah, once you pass store or once you return store, you're good to go. So yeah, I like that this is happening and then we're all seeing all of this happen. So that way you can debug and troubleshoot better for yourself. Now, I want to reference the activity here, which is dancing. and also the time. So what I'll come here to do is store, easy, store dot, it is saved under state, store dot state dot activity, straight up, and you will find it listed. So we see dancing here. Now, awesome. If I want to do the same for the time, I'll just run store.state.time, and then I have 2 days listed. So that's how you can directly access any data or function from the store using Vue Composition API. But then this time around using reactive, and this is the only one I'm going to be displaying or rather talking about because of our time constraints. So we can do this and it would work just fine. So in any component whatsoever, you'll be able to access states, all pleasures, all activities, and you'll be able to access all pleasures, activities, and then your time. So I'll move over to creating a function that you can use anywhere, because I find that this is something that I have to work with a lot of the time when I'm developing large scale applications. So I need to I need to declare a function in my Vue store and then use it in multiple components. This is a typical use case for developing applications that require dashboards and different pages in the dashboard. So a lot of the time you're calling so many functions, and you don't want to crowd your dashboard components. You can just save all of them in the store, or you create modules for them. So yeah, this is a good use for me. So now I'm going to uncomment my method. So if you want to create a function here, you can run the regular options API in the store using composition API. So you can just declare a constant method, and then of course you have to export the method as well. So now I have a method called add new activity. So now what that would do for me, what that would do is to receive this data from my activity, or rather from my form, and then display it the way we have been displaying it. So I'll clear this out so that we have nothing in the form. And so here in my payload, I'm passing two values, activity and time. Now, for me to pass activity, for me to get the activity and time, I'm fetching them from what is in the state. So you can just reference it by writing state.activity straight up, or time, you can reference it by writing time state.time rather. That's a new payload or a new activity, and then the same function that we run in the form state.allpleasures.push.payload, or new activity, whatever you want to call it, is up to you. But I would call it payload, and then I'll save this. So it means that I should be able to use this new activity on my form, or rather in my form. So I'm going to take out add activity, and I will replace it with, well, like you rightly guessed, store.state.add new activity. So if I save this, I wouldn't be displaying my pleasures. I means I need to change this to store.state.pleasures, but I don't want to do that. So what I would do first and foremost to prove that this is working is to run a console log. And I want to console log the payload. Yeah. So we'll save this and then inspect the page. So this is driving. It's a new activity, and I want to do this for 30 minutes. And once I click on add activity, sorry, one moment, I need to go back to my form. Store.methods, I need to eat soon. Store.methods, not store.state. I don't know if somebody caught that early. So yeah, store.methods.add new activity. And once I click on add activity, I can see my payload here. Activity, driving, time, 30 minutes. So it means that it works. Now, at this point, I'd like to create a component to display my pleasure activities in. Okay, yeah, anyways, this still worked. I'd like to create a component to display my activities in instead of using this one. And this is because I also want to be able to use it in another page, which is our pleasures page. If I comment this out, I'm going to get an error because I need to remove activity counts. And I also need to remove activity counts. Oh yeah, I still got an error. Computed is defined whenever used. So let's just take this out so the error can disappear. And then we can go ahead to save this. So great. Now I have a component already called add pleasure. Oh, by the way, I was supposed to create a delete activity, but I'm sure you like get how that works anyways with the ref. So I have this and I want to display it in my yeah. Oh, I know why that worked, because I already have it displayed here. So all pleasures, I'm already passing this all pleasures component to my home. So yeah, you'll be able to see when a new activity is being added. So yeah, and also for that to work, you also need to, okay, no, you don't need to set up here because we're not passing any code directly. But say for example, we want to, I'm just going to demo again how store works. So I would create a variable called work, and the value will be it works. So if I want to pass this, now this is not the form component, this is the home. Once I set up like this, I inject the store, I return the store, I can just go ahead to access the data, which is work, but no, I'll access it as store.state.work. So if I save this, is that what I called it? Work? Yeah, I called it work. So yeah, so it works is showing here, but we don't need that at the moment. So this is how you can test that you can access anything from the store in any component whatsoever. So I will delete that. I already have my all pleasures folder here. Pardon me, my all pleasures file, and I'm returning store.state.allpleasures, and of course using Vue for to render it. So I'm also injecting from the store, import inject from Vue, and then my store is also set up here and then being returned. So yeah, I also want to display it here in my pleasures app, in my pleasures page. So in my pleasures page, I also have to download all pleasures as well. I'll import it from my components, inject Vue as well, and then set up the store to access. Oh yeah, I don't actually need to do that here because all pleasures is already set up. But if you want to test if you can receive data from the store, you can set this up as well and then access your data. Yeah, I know what's wrong. So yeah, I'll comment all of this out because we don't need that. So yeah, so now I'm already passing all pleasures to my pleasure page. Now if I start adding activities, so dancing, 3 minutes, I can see here and in my home page, and I can also see it here in my pleasures page because I am passing it through all pleasures into my pleasures page. So wherever you want to access anything that has happened here relating to adding an activity, all you need to do is reference it from the store. So store.state. Whatever it is, if it's a function, store.method.whatever function, excuse me, whatever the mode function is. So yeah, this is one activity, dancing. Riding, I'll set riding to 30 minutes and I add it. So it's displaying here in my home page, and of course you also find it here in all pleasure activities. So that's essentially how to work with view composition view composition CLI API, not CLI. And I'm telling you that there's a whole lot that you can do, but I find that this is very useful if you want to access data from anywhere. So at this point, I don't even need to pass it through getters to access them. However, you can still use getters to manipulate data, to compute them. Say I want to multiply this time, or I want to divide the time, or I want to calculate how much pleasure I have earned. So there's a lot that can be done with Vue Composition API, but so that we don't drag so I don't drag this a lot longer than I already have, I'm going to be stopping here, and I'll just add one more activity again, just to prove that we're good to go. So we have towing, and then if you come to my pleasures, you also find towing. So here I'm supposed to have created like a delete button, but hey, I'm sure you can try that out on your own, and then get to delete. What you do is essentially just create a delete function here. That will be delete activity, and then you pass the index of all pleasures, and then delete it from anywhere you're calling the function. Yeah. So any questions at this time from anybody? Please, I'd like to hear people speak. So if you have questions, let me hear them. Or I'm the best in explaining things. Everybody understands what I've just explained.
I have a question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for the class, Chinri. Actually, my question is not really related to Vuex, because I'm still learning, and Vuex is on my to learn list. My question is, like, as someone that's still finding a way around in Vue, would you advise like I just totally like go straight to learning compositions API, or I still like learn options API first before learning composition API? And also, what do you advise me using Vue 2 or Vue 3?
Okay, so you want to know if you should go ahead to jump into composition API instead of learning. Okay, now, so the thing about all of these features, they have use cases. Yeah. So there are times when you need to use Vuex or Vue Composition API. Now that's why at the beginning of the talk, I had given an example of use cases where you would find that it is important to use Vuex, and that's when you're like working with a large scale application. So should you learn it? Yes, you should, because if you're going to have to deal with so much data, you need to be able to manage your state properly. And so Vuex or Vue Composition API comes into play. So it's not a feature that you can choose not to learn. You learn it because you would need to use it at some point. Do you understand? But then there are some applications that I build that I don't even bother using the store at all, because I don't depend on so much data. I can get, and the components don't have like very long functions working in them. So yeah, you can just go ahead to use your regular options API, pass your data, your computed property, and then you keep it moving like that. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. So I can see Pelumi asking, how do we ensure we don't add the same activity twice, or do we increase the time if the activity is the same? This one is business case, so it's not part of what I was trying to demo. But so yeah, to ensure that you don't add the same activity twice, you can filter your pleasures app. You can just check to see if this activity already exists. If it does, then you go ahead to display a message, you have already entered this activity. So yeah, you can use JavaScript. You can use JavaScript functions like includes to see if to see if an activity has already been added. But yeah, so that can be done. That can be done using a computed property in the composition API. Any other question? Nobody? Okay, so thank you so much for having me and for listening to me. And again, I want to apologize for the technical issue I had at the beginning. So yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen now. And of course, I'm going to hand over the hosting access to, oh, okay, I think Linda can, I don't know, or Umar, whoever is available can just take it up from here.
Hi, Chinyere. You can just hand it over to me. Yeah, cool.
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay, awesome. I think Diabasi has her hand or his hands raised. So would you like to ask a question? I'm going to unmute you now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Omar.
Yeah, hi.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
All right. Well done to Chinyere for that good presentation. After this is my first time of joining this Vue Meetup. I've been wishing to join, but for some reasons, being busy, I couldn't join. And
Okay.
It's quite impressive what you guys are doing. I'm not a beginner. I have at least 4 years experience with you. But I've been looking forward to really joining the Meetup, at least to help as well to share my knowledge with the younger ones. Okay, so I just wanted to add to your answer about if she should learn Vue 3. I think that's what she asked. And I will say yes, you shouldn't learn Vue 2 anymore. And that means that you shouldn't also use options API anymore going forward. So if you're coming into Vue for the first time, you should jump straight into Vue 3 and use the composition API. That's actually what is being recommended by the founder of VueJS.
Okay.
And the reason why we still have the options API in Vue 3 is so that apps can still be backwards compatible. Okay, it's not for us. It's not for it to be. It's not for it to build new apps with options API, but it's so that if you have old apps that were built with options API, you can easily migrate them to composition API in steps. So I recommend that if you want to learn Vue, start with the composition API. Don't go back to options API, because I think within the next few years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, they will drop support for options API totally. So that's what I would say. Yeah, and just like you also said, Vuex can be an overkill for very small projects. It's not necessary at all. So if you need to manage simple states within your app, you can make use of your refs, your reactive, and so on. There's no need to bring in Vuex if you are building a very small app. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ndiabasi, for not a question, but also a contribution as well. So yeah, I think people just getting into Vue, well, it's always good to know everything and try to learn about the options API, not just the composition API as well. Ndiabasi, I wanted to ask, so what do you suggest someone that is currently using Nuxt, for example, which, if I recall clearly, is still based off of Vue 2. So how does like a beginner in that, work around it?
I think I'm as well very happy because I'm a very active Nuxt user, and I can't wait to migrate my Nuxt website so Vue 3. But I think the core developers of Nuxt, they've released, there have been Nuxt API for, sorry, there have been compression API for a long time. I think at least 1 year now. So you can still write, even if you are using Nuxt, the old Nuxt, you can still bring in your compression API into Nuxt right now. But I think they've released the official release for Nuxt 3 that has the compression API. It was released, I think last month or this month. You can check their website for that update. So I think that issue has been solved. Even before now, there have been compression API for Nuxt for a long time, but you have to bring in an extra package and use that to work with Nuxt. You can check their website about that. If you search for Nuxt compression API, you see a separate package for that.
Awesome. Chinyere, do you have anything to add to that? Do you want to share some more insights?
Yeah, you already mentioned that. I was going to say there's already Vue Composition API in Nuxt that you can use. And yes, so it's available for you to access Vue Composition API in Nuxt.js. Now, I also want to speak a little about Vue 2. I clearly understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from when you say that people should just focus on Vue 3. But the thing about understanding how Vue 2 works is if you have to work with an old code base that is still written in Vue 2, so that it doesn't seem out of place. You don't find it difficult to understand. I mean, the similarities are quite a lot, but as someone who is learning, please just have an idea of what Vue 2 looks like and what Vue 3 looks like as well, so that you can tell if you have to work with an old code base, you can tell that this is Vue 2, you know how to navigate, and you can even determine, well, if you have to now migrate to Vue 3, at least you know what you're migrating because you understand what Vue 2 is. So that's all I'm going to be adding.
I think that's an excellent point, Chinyere. It's always good to know all the different, you should be able to recognize Vue 2 and also Vue 3 as well in a code base. So yeah, thank you very much, Chinyere and Ndiabasi, for your suggestions. Does anyone else have any questions around Vue 3 and Vue 2 before we round up? Okay, so no questions. Okay, I think we have a contribution from Pelumi in the chat, who says, general knowledge of Vue 2 is good to have, I guess, to migrate issues, typically along the lines of what Chinyere rightly said. So it's the same thing, same idea, basically, just have general knowledge, always very good. Yeah. So I think if there are no more questions, thank you very much, Chinyere, once again for that amazing presentation. You handled that very, very well. It was also a good example of how to, stay calm in the face of like projects when you're getting errors and things like that. You handle them brilliantly, and you're able to basically give us a very good overview of how the composition API works. So thank you very much. I think Adams wasn't able to join us, except he's here under a different name. No. Okay. So like I said, we usually do this once a month. This community meetup, we're able to gather around, speak about Vue, not just learn new things, but also get like insights into things that we already know, explanations, share ideas, just as we've had Diabasi and Chinyere and Pelumi as well. They're able to give us different views on why we should use certain things. I know I've certainly learned a lot. So, yeah. So as well, we also have our Slack channel, which should be up on our Twitter now. You can check that out. Join the Slack conversation. And yeah, see you all next month for the next edition. Take care. You can always reach out to us on Twitter if you have any follow-up questions or you have general inquiries about the community and so on. So yeah, thanks everyone for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you guys. Well done, everyone.
All right, bye everyone. Bye.